Welcome to Charts Today. My name is David Linton, and today's edition for Wednesday, the 6th of June, comes to you from London. And we start by looking at the dollar, still just sinking a little bit lower here, so still bearish on the short-term chart. So it's just struggling to break to bullish territory there, and that's partly driven by euro strength. And we're seeing the euro just continuing to just push a little bit higher here. Fears of italics at just uh, evaporating a little bit at the moment. So um, it's Italy was the big concern for the euro last week. That's off the table at the moment, but the euro is still looking very bearish in the medium term. So it just depends how short if the short-term trend is. The yen dollar is still holding its own here, so that does suggest that the dollar will continue to strengthen, yen being quite a good lead indicator. Sterling is pushing higher against the dollar, so we are just seeing that dollar weakness continuing there. And against the euro, we're seeing the euro pushing higher as well. So sterling pushing higher as well. So sterling just showing some strength this morning, and we're seeing that against the Swiss franc as well. Against the Aussie dollar, though, we had quite a good recovery yesterday, but just selling off again this morning. Bitcoin sitting at $7,600, so very little change here. Still bearish in the medium term, and short term is just struggling to get through the cloud. US markets pushed higher again last night. The S&P 500 is certainly bullish above the cloud, but we are still a long way from the January high. And if you look at the Nasdaq Composite actually made a new all-time high. Nasdaq 100 now pushing higher, testing that level as well. So the tech stocks really are driving the recovery. The Dow still struggling as well, and the broader-based Russell actually looking pretty strong. So we are seeing the recovery occurring, but it's just not across the board in the US. The future on the S&P is up 0.2% this morning. The Nasdaq E-mini is up just under 1/3%, so it does suggest the US market will continue to move higher. Looking at the UK market, not open yet this morning, but it still is bearish on that short-term chart, and the mid caps in the UK also just struggling to push higher as well. So we're seeing really just the failure to make a new high being a factor here. So we're seeing that in the US, but not yet in Europe. The short-term chart in the mid caps is looking a bit better than it was, though. The German market recovering as well, but just struggling to break through that short-term cloud. So Europe not looking as strong as the US at the moment, which is interesting because a few weeks ago Europe was looking stronger than the US. It's now cycled the other way, and the current also not looking as strong as it was. Japan is just struggling to break through the cloud there on the short and medium term charts, and even though it was up slightly, Hang Seng also recovering short term, but the medium and long term charts still not showing signs of new highs. The local market in Shanghai still just struggling, and this is the one market still does look quite bearish. And the Sensex index in India looking stronger, up 0.4%, and the Aussie market just struggling to break through. Brent crude sitting at 75.85. Did see a bit of a sell-off yesterday, but recovering this morning. So just sitting that mid 70s level, and WTI sitting at 65.82. So that's almost $10 exactly for the spread between the two products. Looking at US nat gas sitting at $2.91, just struggling to break through that $3 mark. Gold is up, just nudging the $1,300 level. That's putting us into bullish territory on the short-term chart. We have an upside target of 1317. Interestingly, we need to really get above this high of around 307, 308 to deactivate that downside target. But gold is looking better than it has done. And silver also just pushing higher above the clouds, so looking bullish now short term, with quite a good few upside targets there. US 10-year yields nudging higher, $2, 2.94%. So just heading back towards that 3 mark. We've got targets to 294, which we're at, 298. And of course, on the long-term chart, if we make a new high on yields, that's 3.83%. So that's a long way higher. Looking at the Bund, it's steady this morning, just down 0.2%, so the yields are just climbing there as well. Apple, quite a strong showing last night, looking up to 0.75%, pushing to a new all-time high. Amazon has, of course, been the star of the tech majors, up 1.8% last night, so really just continuing its ascent. Google, which has lagged, was only up 0.03%, so that's still struggling to keep up with the rest of the market. And the Facebook shares also just sitting at 192, just struggling a little bit. Very much Amazon is the driver there, and Microsoft pushing higher, breaking 102 for the first time. So Microsoft looking pretty strong as well. That's it for today. Until tomorrow, happy charting. See you then.